Have you ever wondered how our brain controls our movements? How it enables us to do everything from tying our shoelaces to performing complex dance routines? The answer lies in a fascinating and intricate process that takes place within our brain's motor cortex. Situated in an area of the frontal lobe known as the precentral gyrus, the motor cortex is made up of two key parts, Brodmann's areas 4 and 6. This region is the main stage for our motor function, the director of our every movement. But the performance isn't a one-man show. It involves the entire neocortex, which provides the necessary information for movement, including our body's position in space, the location of our intended target, and the best strategy for movement. The primary motor cortex, or PMC, is Brodmann's area 4. This area is the most specific cortical motor area and contains the largest concentration of corticospinal neurons. It is electrically excitable, and even low-intensity stimuli can evoke a motor response. The PMC lies just before the central sulcus on the precentral gyrus and is in charge of our voluntary movements on the opposite side of our body. Brodmann's area 6, on the other hand, is divided into two parts, the supplementary motor area, or SMA, and the premotor area, or PMA. Both are electrically excitable, but they require a higher intensity of stimuli to trigger a motor response. The SMA is responsible for initiating movement, grasping movements that involve both hands, sequential tasks, and the orientation of our eyes and head. Meanwhile, the PMA provides input to the reticulospinal neurons, which control trunk and proximal limb movements and contribute to anticipatory postural changes. Stimulation of area 4 usually results in simple movements of a single joint. In contrast, stimulating the premotor areas in Brodmann's area 6 evokes more intricate, coordinated movements involving multiple joints. The organization of the motor cortex is known as somatotopic, similar to the sensory cortex. The motor homunculus, a visual representation of this, shows the amount of cortical area devoted to motor control of different body parts. From the lateral aspect of the homunculus, the mouth and face areas are represented, followed by areas for the hands, trunk, lower extremities, and feet. Interestingly, areas that require finer control, such as the fingers, hand, and face, occupy approximately half of the motor cortex's representation. The motor cortex receives information from three primary sources: the somatosensory cortex, the cerebellum, and the basal ganglia. The somatosensory input is relayed directly to the primary motor cortex from the thalamus, which also relays information to the motor areas from the cerebellum and the basal ganglia. This interconnectedness allows the motor cortex, cerebellum, and basal ganglia to work together in harmony, enabling us to carry out the appropriate course of motor action. In the grand scheme of things, the motor cortex and its intricate network of neurons and connections are the maestros of movement. They coordinate and control our every action, allowing us to interact with the world around us in meaningful and purposeful ways.